I'm going to call the commission meeting of March 15th, 2018 to order. Can we please get a roll call vote?
Mayor Weissman,
A roll call.
Mayor Weissman,
You here?
Vice Mayor Shelley.
Here.
Commissioner Landman,
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Marks.
Here.
Commissioner Mizrahi,
Here.
Commissioner Narosky.
Here.
Commissioner Weinberg.
Here.
Mrs. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Wolfen. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Can we rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask the city manager if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda.
Mayor, staff is requesting that item number 3, the resolution regarding joining the Weston lawsuit, be tabled while we collect some additional information.
Is there any opposition? Okay, then it's deleted from the agenda. All right, that brings us to item 4. That's staff recommendations on school safety. This was the carryover from our last commission meeting, and I'm going to ask the city manager to please, and our police chief, Chief Pegues, to please review the item.
Absolutely. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, based on the feedback that we had received at the last commission meeting, staff has been studying the issue of safety recommendations for Aventura Waterways, and we'd like to present a set of recommendations, but just a few preliminary items to go over prior. We'll have a site assessment, just some concerns and considerations, and those don't mean we can't do this or that they're unsurmountable, but I want to make sure that you have total information as far as the different things we had to look at. We're going to have a set of recommendations which are short-term, which are from probably the spring break till the end of the school year, intermediate term, which would be the following school year, and long-term thereafter. And then we'd be happy to answer questions, and ultimately we'd be looking for just some direction from the commission on where to go mostly with those short-term recommendations, because again, things are evolving very much. And I'm going to give it to the chief for the site assessment. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, mayor, family members, everybody that's here. At the last commission meeting, we were tasked with going over some options for Waterways Elementary, or K-8 school that's located at 21101 Northeast 26th Avenue in unincorporated Miami-Dade County. So what we did is we came over, like the manager said, with some short-term, intermediate, and long-term solutions that we can do here. But I think I'd be remiss before we got into those solutions without giving a brief overview of the current situation, what we're allowed to do, and what our current agreement is with Miami-Dade Schools Police. So anyway, the Waterways K-8 school has 2,200 students. There's 1,800 on site at this location, with 400 at an annex at 750 Ives Dairy Road. Currently, Miami-Dade Schools Police has jurisdiction over the school site, and that includes their development of policies, procedures, emergency plans. And what we currently have with Miami-Dade Schools Police is we have a mutual aid agreement between the Aventura Police Department and Miami-Dade Schools Police. What that allows us to do is to provide law enforcement services in emergency situations only, as it currently stands. So in essence, if there was an emergency or an incident that occurred at the school that we were made aware of, we would respond, we could handle, make arrests, and do everything in an emergency situation, and Miami-Dade Schools Police would ultimately take control of the scene afterwards, any follow-up investigations. And currently, all calls for service, so any 911 calls or any calls, fire alarms, are routed through Miami-Dade Dispatch, Miami-Dade Communications. They do not come through us. Just for the audience members here, so that you know, is we currently in the Aventura Police Department have our own 911 center and our own communications center. Any calls for service that come out of Waterways Waterways K-8 go through Miami-Dade County. They do not come through us. So the only Miami-Dade County would have to contact us if there's any calls for service over there. And currently, Miami-Dade Schools Police has full operational control, and they also are the only ones that have access to a lot of the infrastructure over there as well. So what Miami-Dade Schools Police allows and what they have for other jurisdictions, as this would be an intermediate solution, is they have an addendum to the mutual aid agreement that a municipality can enter into. The addendum is a school-based law enforcement addendum that allows an outside municipality to provide limited law enforcement services over there. One of the prerequisites of that addendum is that any outside agency
Excuse me, Chief,
has...
could you explain that one more time, what that is, please?
So, Miami-Dade Schools Police allows, in different municipalities, South Miami, Coral Gables, and different cities, for any county school, they have an addendum that a municipality can enter into that allows that municipality to provide long-term or full-time law enforcement services to that school. That addendum has to go through, obviously, through the commission, and then it would go through the county to be approved and the city attorney. One of the prerequisites for that is that's basically for like a school-based law enforcement officer, an SRO at the school. That officer would have to comply prior to that addendum being in effect with several training requirements put on by Miami-Dade County Schools Police. Some of these are 40-hour courses that would take 40 hours, and there's some other critical infrastructure trainings that have to be done. Currently, we do not participate in that training through Miami-Dade County Schools Police, so none of our officers have that training. That's the impediment to the school-based law enforcement officer program. For a long-term solution, if that's something that we entered into, the officer that's assigned over there, or officers that would be assigned over there, would have to go through that training before that they could perform law enforcement services over there. And just to be known that the law enforcement services per that agreement are for security purposes, some traffic issues, and some school-based law enforcement training programs. Any follow-up investigations, anything that occurs that has a follow-up component on site has to be turned over to Miami-Dade Schools Police. Now, some of the short-term short-term recommendations that we could do in the near future or the immediate future would be, I don't know if you want to cover.
Yeah, I was going to do real quick let me go back. Just again, we said there were financial considerations and the things that we were considering when we were making the recommendation, where the funding responsibility lied, fiscal year, the year that we're in right now, budget allocation. In the short term, it would require overtime for our police department, and then the other consideration is possible requests from other schools. So those are things, again, that we just kind of wanted to put on the table as far as financial considerations. In the short term, let's see here, down here. There we go. Our short-term recommendation is that the Aventura Police Department provide security coverage using that overtime from the end of spring break until the end of the school year. That would require a short memorandum of understanding or letter of understanding with the school board police, and we feel that we would be able to obtain that prior to spring break. And we would continue through the mutual aid agreement to provide emergency law enforcement services based on, again, that current mutual aid agreement. So that would be in the short term to provide security at the school while the situation continues to evolve, because we know that there's state funding, that the county is considering putting school resource officers in the schools. So again, that provides a stopgap measure while those other things evolve. In the intermediate term, that we would continue to work with state, county, and the schools to designate a permanent dedicated funding source for school resource officers at every site. And through the budget process, if the commission would like, we could consider entering into that agreement with the schools and modifying that addendum to provide APD situational control, and also to allocate funds in our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And on the long term, the recommendations again are to continue to work with those agencies and ensuring that the students are safe at the schools with that dedicated permanent funding source. So again, those are our recommendations in the short term. We'd be happy to answer questions. And again, looking just for direction from the commission, mostly on those short-term recommendations so we can start proceeding with those.
Let me ask, do we have copies of that? Because I certainly don't.
Copies of the presentation?
Yes.
And we'll be able to get you those.
Well,
Sorry.
it's just a little difficult. It's not even loaded on the
Yeah. it's nothing.
iPad,
We have
so
nothing.
it's very hard.
sorry.
And as Vice Mayor Shelley was asking our chief a question, as it comes up, without having to refer back to something,
Exactly.
it's a little complicated, because now we're looking at short-term, intermediate, and long-term.
Yeah, and I'm going to
Nothing
get those
refer to.
right now, and
Thank
then
you.
we'll go through the slides. As you have questions, we'll go back.
Excuse me.
Okay,
If I may,
Vice
just
Mayor?
to follow up on that. Excuse me, Susan, one of the things that we don't see here, and I think it's going to be critical for us before we could even make a decision, and obviously the children come first, but there's no cost numbers involved with any of this.
Yeah, and I'd be happy for the Aventura Police Department to provide 8 hours a day for the 45 school days that are remaining in the school year after spring break. The cost is $18,000.
Okay.
And
We'll
that's
get
the
questions out.
short-term recommendation.
Well, yeah, but I have other questions about
Yep.
short-term,
Yes.
midterm,
Go ahead.
and so on, so it's
Well,
not just
I
that
think,
simple.
I'm sorry, I think many of us do. But
Okay.
again, till we get the information
Yeah.
in a format we can read it, it kind of hampers us.
Okay.
So, I almost want to take a break till we can look at what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Or perhaps the public, if you wanted to get any public comment, no? Okay.
This is what they're
Well,
saying for the
I have a
first time.
question first before we go.
Excuse me, recognized through the chair of the meeting. Okay, so please, go ahead. We don't just talk out.
Sorry. I know that it involves more than just a police officer outside the schools. It has to be a comprehensive security program in it. 2 weeks ago, there was a drill and a lockdown at Hillel where all the students and all the school was involved just for security and drill with the teachers, the students, and everyone. And I know that it takes a whole comprehensive plan to make this. So I don't think it's just putting an outside officer, because that won't work. I think it's going to put our officers in danger and the kids inside in danger.
And we agree 100%. However, to put together a comprehensive program like that, it would take a little bit more time. So again, that's why the short-term recommendation is to provide that security, just because there is none really there at this point, to provide it from spring break till the end of the year while there is time to develop that comprehensive program. So we agree 100%.
And what happens if OJS, which is around the corner, and CROP come with the same request?
And again, that was one of the financial considerations that we talked about that other schools could request. It is our understanding that there is a school resource officer at CROP right now. And the other information that we received is that it's a much smaller number of Aventura kids, if any, that are at OJS.
Okay, it's going to be Commissioner Dr. Linda Marks, but let me take 1 second and just recognize former State Senator Ron Silver, School Board Member Dr. Martin Karp, Regional Director Sally Allion, Principal of Aventura Waterways Louis Bello, and most important of all, the parents that are sitting here in our audience. Greatest concern to us. So I do want to say good morning. Dr. Marks.
So I would like to just mention and tell the commission that I reached out to the mayor and asked her if she would go with me over to see the school, because I am extremely familiar with schools, but I've never visited this school. So we took a little field trip and we went over, we met with the principal. And Gladys, the principal is very well aware, I don't want to speak for you, that he needs a comprehensive plan. And it's my understanding, I believe you had training, your first training, was it last week, where you got together for a number of hours? Or they are having training?
when you say training, I think you're referring to my
Lockdowns.
comment to you that the district was holding a meeting for all principals.
Right.
Not to train, but to reevaluate and basically bring to light some things that are coming down the pike from Tallahassee, and just to refresh what we already kind of know, but sometimes we don't get a training on a regular basis. But we do, by the way, I have to say, in our school, we do have a plan in place for any situation that arises. However, there are some missing pieces that would make the school even more solid. Okay?
And this is what we discussed. We literally walked through the entire building. We talked about, a number of different things. So in terms of the comprehensiveness, the principal is well aware. I believe that what is happening here is without any police presence, nothing, you are much more of a sitting duck, the Aventura Waterways is, than, let's say, a school right down the block or around the corner that has a police presence. It's not the answer. It's not the only answer. It's one piece in a very complex puzzle. But I also believe that the Aventura Waterway School has all of the rest of our children who are going to public school who do not get into ACES. So there's, I believe, a much more serious responsibility for the commission to be very supportive. You have a wonderful, beautiful school and a great principal and a great staff. And I think that what we have to do is figure out a way to be supportive. But Susan, I do have a question.
Yes.
Well, actually, I guess I have to ask the chief. How long does it take to onboard a new employee and really get them trained?
You're talking about a school-based law enforcement officer? Well, we would have to do it, we would do it through existing staffing, and then with the new budget year, we would look at replenishing that person, but they would have to go through, in order for them to be a school-based law enforcement officer, there's a minimum mandatory 40-hour training course that they would have to go to.
I understand. I guess my question is, why are we looking at overtime for this year? Why is it that we're not able to either hire someone in the short term that you might ultimately be training for whatever, or even explain it might be a part-time position for right now, but why are we looking at overtime as opposed to regular time for this person?
Well, for the immediate term, there's a couple of reasons for that.
Okay.
The easiest way for us to staff it, and if we were going to provide a visible deterrent and security and do it the right way for us as it stands right now with current staffing, in a detail process where we would rotate different officers and through schedules would be the easiest way to do it. For me to take a full-time or a couple full-time people and put them over there on a full-time basis would deplete our resources that we have already. And I think this would be the best way to do it in the short term over there. In the intermediate or the long term, depending on what the commission or the direction of the commission, that is something that we could look into and providing a continuity of service over there with somebody that develops a relationship with the children in the school. That's something that we could do. But we would need to staff it in the interim on a rotating basis.
So again, that's just the short-term
No,
solution.
I
yeah.
understand. I understand. I guess, and I don't want to push you. I guess my question is, do you honestly not have enough staff to put together a 40-hour, it's not even a 40-hour work week in a school? Especially with, it's a total of 45 days.
Right, but it also comes with if somebody calls out sick or staffing and different things on our day shift. It just staffing wise, it just works better for us in order to put somebody over there in the short term basis to do that. It would ensure, if we did it in this way, you would ensure that you would have continual coverage on a daily basis over there, and there would be no break in service.
And the difference in cost, I mean, I know it sounds like it's overtime, but we said it's $18,000. If it was at straight time, it would be maybe $15,000. So, I mean, so the overtime, differential isn't that big.
You're not paying time and a half?
Well, that's kind of the half.
Time and a half would not be 15,000 to 18,000.
Okay, so let's see, maybe 10. Probably somewhere between 10 and 12, but again, there's money in the budget to absorb the 18.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Shelley?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Number one, just on a side note, and I appreciate what Dr. Marks is saying, but I don't think we should be sitting here telling our chief how to staff his people. From my understanding is they're short 6 people correct right now. And probably the last thing we want to do is compromise our city by worrying about this, and if we're going to take somebody away, it hurts us in someplace else. So the idea may be a good idea, but I think we should let the chief, who's very well aware of this, deal with these kind of issues. I've got different issues, though. And unfortunately, this is putting us in a very bad light, because a lot of parents are here because they need help, and we want to give them help, and we are totally ill-equipped to make a decision based on a number of issues I have. As you saw up in Parkland, which is horrible, everybody's getting sued, obviously, which is the normal way our world is today. It's a very litigious world. And I understand we want to do something, and I'm in total agreement we have to do something. But my concern would be, and I would want to hear from our attorney, number one, the liability factor that we're incurring. Number two, we have our school board here, and yet I think it's very embarrassing and disgraceful that our school board is doing absolutely nothing to do something to help the kids of their own school. And we have to absorb it, which we're going to do something, obviously. But I would have to have cost, the breakdown, what it's going to accomplish, how many hours they're going to be there. And are we really doing anything more than, is this a Band-Aid on a bigger problem? And if we have to take on a bigger responsibility, we should be talking about that as well in a comprehensive plan. I understand this is a stopgap measure, and I understand it's 18,000 to 15, and it's not going to make or break the city, and we're in favor of it, I'm sure. But I have a bigger question, and that is, number one, what will be the liability of the city in doing this? Because we are taking on a responsibility of 2,000 lives by doing what we're doing. And as you saw, because one officer didn't run into a building, you're losing a chief, you're losing a Broward sheriff, you're losing that. Now there's all kinds of lawsuits going on. And we want to make sure we have some kind of indemnification from the school board, from the police of the city, and the school itself, as best as we can to protect ourselves, because we're trying to help. And the old expression, no good deed goes unpunished. But before I vote on this, I would like to hear our school board representative, Mr. Kopp, tell us why the school board is doing nothing for this school.
At this moment, we're entertaining commissioner
That's okay.
questions.
I'm just saying at such a
Yeah,
right time.
And
I would like to hear that.
I certainly will recognize him.
Yeah.
But I do want to say to everyone, you know, all of our nerves and all of our souls are particularly impacted because of the loss of children's lives. And yesterday, 200,000 children over the country walked out about responsible gun control. So we all have heightened awareness. I would really like to say none of us were there. We know what we read in the Herald, and I have no problem saying I've never been quoted correctly in the Herald ever. So sometimes the information we read might not actually be the truth, and I would want to give their law enforcement every benefit of a doubt until we get a full explanation of what happened. The reason for this meeting today was to kind of get an overview, and I think that's what we're in the process of doing. And as per all of our meetings, the commission speaks, then we have people in the audience that wish to speak. We have elected official, we have school board representative, we have region representative, we have the school principal, and all of them will be afforded an opportunity to speak. I also want to really, because I'm not sure everyone knows this, I really want to commend our chief, Chief Pegues. He went out of his way to communicate with the chief of Miami-Dade County Public Schools police chief, Ian Moffett. They have had numerous long conversations. This is not something that gets resolved today. Okay, this is a huge social issue. And finding out what the school system is able to do and contribute is absolutely important, and I know personally you went out of your way to have very meaningful conversation. I also want to say that, you know, Dr. Marks and I did take a tour of the building, and so not to violate sunshine, if there was anything that was going to come up that we might have to vote upon other than seeing the physical structure of the building, we were not engaged in that kind of dialogue. It's just interesting to walk a school, and you don't know what you're talking about in terms of a facility until you actually see. So I think I can give maybe a sentence of history. If you go down Ives Dairy to Highland Oaks Middle, Highland Oaks Middle is a building that's pretty close to being a fortress. It doesn't have windows. It has very little very few openings. It can all be shut down, and that was a model we built. I don't know, Sally, how many years ago? And we have schools all over the county that are very much like that without windows. Then it became an environmental concern. The kids can't see the fresh air, and they can't see, and they can't open windows, not that we open them anyway, but that they can't open them in Aventura Waterways when Aventura Waterways was built 10 years ago, I guess. They have an abundance of glass, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it's a real challenge in terms of providing this kind of security you want to. So it was very eye-opening to see it. I would recommend that anybody that hasn't been there, and Mr. Bello couldn't have been more gracious, to please put your eyes on it because it's very helpful. I know that there were a couple of other commissioners that had some. Commissioner Landman.
I know, as Vice Mayor Shelley said, I think for the most part the commission is in support of doing something to protect our children, and I think, we're going to discuss short-term, intermediate, and long-term, but I just have a question because we have our school resource officer at ACES, right? And he's fantastic. Is there a way that he can provide training or anything to kind of support, if we move forward with providing something, that he can kind of lend a helping hand to ease this transition? Obviously, we're talking about security coverage, not necessarily school resource officer short term, but something of a, any way that he can provide support or help or guidance in anything to kind of ease that transition if we do move forward with that plan.
Yes, absolutely he could. Long-term wise, like I said, he could provide direction and also assistance in training and some of the infrastructure measures that we'd want to put in place at the school. And he could do that. But like I mentioned before, is for the short-term solution, his guidance will be crucial to any of the officers that are working in that area. But in the short term, some of the requirements that are in the current addendum that they require us to do would take, like we mentioned before, so some of the trainings are 40 hours, some of them may be 20 hours or whatever it is, but it's not just that they're available 24/7. You have to schedule and make sure that those courses are available. So it could take months before you get somebody through that. But yes, he would be available to help in any way he could.
And then in terms of if we do move forward, there's going to be documents, agreements, all of that kind of covering a lot of the concerns that Vice Mayor mentioned and and all of that, right? I assume just like any contract, any agreement, we're going to have all of those things in place.
In the longer intermediate term. In the short term, again, we would have to, and with David's guidance, put together a letter of understanding just to cover, again, that short term, because all those other things do take much time. And again, we wanted to provide some stopgap measure, as Commissioner Shelley referred to it.
Thank you.
In the interim.
Well, then, with that, David, let me ask, because I too am concerned with what Vice Mayor Shelley's concerned about. What kind of indemnification? And remember, police departments have mutual aid agreements and everything, so what would we be looking for legally?
We would have the normal protections of the mutual aid agreements. We would want to be requested to provide help. We want that request to come from Miami-Dade Police Department under our mutual aid, and also from the Miami-Dade School Police under mutual aid. Likewise, we would have risk management confirm with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, the city's liability insurance carrier, that the work of our police department would be covered while they're engaged in this assignment. And our police department has an excellent track record of handling things in a proper manner so that unnecessary liability is avoided. So I don't feel that liability would be an impediment to the city of Aventura providing assistance in this matter.
If I may.
Vice Mayor?
Just a question on that. You said something which was, I thought, pretty important, but maybe not. You said that we would want to have them ask us to do this. I would imagine that would be an important factor.
That's correct. That's the letter of understanding that the city manager refers to make a clear track record that mutual aid has been invoked. The Miami-Dade County School Police and the Miami-Dade County Police Force should ask the City of Aventura Police Department to provide this assistance to the school. That way it's documented in the record that we're acting under full mutual aid power, and that protects our officers to the same extent when they act extraterritorially as when they act within their own city, to make sure they're protected with proper benefits and protections that the law affords them.
Thank you.
And as of this time, am I correct in saying no such request has been made either from Dade County Public Schools Police or from Miami-Dade County Police?
Correct, no official request has been made.
Okay. Commissioner Weinberg, then Commissioner Dr. Linda Marks.
I'm not concerned about liability, I'm concerned about lives. I think maybe I was naive, maybe I was stupid, but if you had asked me a month and a half ago, intuitively I would have said, of course there's a school resource officer at Waterways. There's one at every school, absolutely. And to learn that the very real possibility that if an Aventura child is not lucky enough to win the lottery to go to ACES, and they end up at Waterways, that they actually might be less safe. That's crazy, and completely unacceptable. So, having said that, I'm not going to pretend that I know what the answer is. The only thing I know is that at least now until the end of the school year, we need to change that picture on our own, while we work with the school board and whatever other jurisdictions in order to make a more permanent change. But our children should be safe no matter where they happen to end up going to school. And as I said, it's just stunning for me to learn that there's virtually no security at the moment. That's just... It shouldn't have taken Parkland. What about Sandy Hook? What about Columbine? I mean, at the end of the day, we've had plenty of time to work on this. So for now, I don't care what it costs. If it's $18,000, it's $18,000. Let's figure it out and then work on it over the summer. Thank you.
While I appreciate the enthusiasm in the meeting, let's hold all of that for later. It's very serious, and every person up here is trying to do the right thing. So applauding one kind of sways things. So I'm just going to ask respectively, we hold that. We know how you feel. We honestly know how you feel. Dr. Marks?
I just want to address Vice Mayor for a second, and I want you to know that in no way was I interested in any way in directing the chief. I think that the chief and I have worked together, in the time he's been here. I was asking questions to seek information because we were given nothing in writing. So I want to clarify that, first of all.
You're
But
right.
second of all, the talk that has gone on here about agreements and intergovernmental agreements and requests and all these things, we have 45 days left of this school year.
From the end of spring break till the
Spring
end of the school year,
Okay.
yes.
And again, all of us need to understand that a police officer at the school is one item in a much more comprehensive plan that, is ongoing and will be developed. But I would just ask that whoever is going to be working on these agreements, do it now. There's no reason to wait. We need to do whatever we need to do. These are our children, and we need to do it. So I would just ask that we not get bogged down in all the legal stuff that can take us till the end of the year. Let's try to put it on the fast track. Thank you.
Commissioner Narodsky?
So just practically, again, I appreciate a lot of the issues that were already raised, but just some things that I had wrote down. It seems as though there, and I would be in favor of, and it seems from what I'm hearing, a consensus to implement the short-term measure. Perhaps if we could get rolling, and I guess my question is, can we start for Monday or the next possible school day? So based upon the prerequisites, it seems like, can we get the confirmation from our insurance that we're good, and can we get that request from the Dade County to operate under the mutual, and then just start Monday? Is that technically possible? Just so we can, and then we can all talk about this at the, at the short term, the intermediate and the long term at a later time, but can we just start right away?
Chief?
Absolutely, is if we can get some of the,
If we can get something.
And those,
Okay, and we do have people here that might be able to provide those answers to us.
and those shouldn't take long.
right, they shouldn't take long, and like I said, what we'll do, I don't want an open forum to go in what some of our measures are
Absolutely.
that we would
And again,
provide.
I just
so-
want to say that often what police do, we minimize their impact if we discuss it in a public forum. They're providing safety, and we don't always have to know all the details of what they are doing. We have to respect, and we certainly do respect our chief, that we will have full confidence in the decisions that he makes. Yes, you may.
So I want to be clear that I guess the answer is that from our police department, we would have the ability to start at the next possible school day, and then that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct? I mean, if it's not possible, I'm just trying to understand where the process is. And then I guess with regard to getting this type of request, I just want to know how this is done, if there's anything that we should do, and also Chief, let us know if we need to put pressure on people. I guess it seems like we're getting bogged down in a lot of stuff. I'd just like to have a game plan and then an execution, so we kind of leave here with some understanding of, at the very least, what we need to do, what others need to do, and where we go.
And we will absolutely get that taken care of in the quickest way possible.
Commissioner Mizrahi.
Chief, what about the training that is required? How fast can you do it, or it doesn't need to be?
And the training that we were talking about would be more for the intermediate type solutions. So for that short term, it is
We can-
not part of that requirement.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I want to make sure I make myself clear as to my position. I don't think anybody here is objecting to doing this. The kids come first, and I don't think that had anything to do with the questions that we're asking. My first question, and the most important question, is we have a lot of parents here today, and we have the school board here today, and we're taking on a responsibility that my belief is, and I run a school, and we have other schools in the city, and we've had zero help in our respect for these areas because the school board has not now addressed these issues, and it may be budget constraints. I'm not putting any personal blame on anybody. My concern is it's most likely going to happen that we're going to do something on an intermediate basis, because we must. We have children there that have to be taken care of, and there's a very good chance we may have to do something further. What I'm trying to understand is whatever the budget issues are, whatever comes out of Tallahassee, and I'm not getting bogged down on details, there is a responsibility of a school board that has a school that just happens to have our students in it, that I'm waiting to hear what you're going to do. And I'm not blaming you or not yet, because I haven't heard anything. But all I'm trying to understand is, what are you as a school board doing to protect your students in your school that now we have to take on the responsibility to do? We have parents here. I think it's time they heard from the school board, because I'm thrilled you're here. Because so far we have heard nothing about this issue. So I believe we've heard enough about our points, what we're going to have to do to get this done, and by all means, I don't think anybody's objecting to that. But I would like to hear, while you're here, and I'm sure the parents would like to hear, what are the immediate goals and what are the long-term goals and intentions that the school board's going to do to take on the responsibility to protect their children.
And as I said, we will have them come up as Robert's Rules of
That's my
Orders
point that I'm trying
dictates.
to make here today.
It's just normally in our process, all the
Okay, no,
commissioners.
that's okay. I wanna
And
hear.
I'm going to say, details, not details, everything that's been said this morning is immensely important. This is something we have to get right. We can't lose one more child. And I think what the city managers clearly heard, the school board members clearly heard, is that this is of utmost importance. It's of an emergency nature. We don't want to get, correct, Vice Mayor? We don't want to get bogged down in the administrivia of different bureaucracies. We want to leave. We want our parents to leave, maybe getting the first night's sleep they've gotten in a long time, knowing that there are some action steps that will be taken. So let me just ask, and I'll tell you what I will do. Let me just ask now that we have, and again, just so everybody understands the dynamics, we have district staff here, school board staff, and we have an elected official, a school board member. May I ask for them to come up now and speak, and then if we have questions, I will go back to our questions, then I will go to the public for questions. So Dr. Karp or Ms. Allion, whoever wants to take the lead role in talking.
I'll also first of all, good morning, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager and staff. Always a great opportunity to be able to address you about something very critical, student safety. In addition to Ms. Allion, who's the Region Director for the North Region, our Commander Jackson, is with us because there actually is collaboration with Aventura Waterways in terms of police presence. Just for edification, the school district, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, is one of the few school districts in the state that actually has its own police force. Most school systems don't even have a school police force that assists them. Something also to note before I get into some specifics, Miami-Dade County Public Schools has 370 campuses. When schools were built, and a lot of our schools, and Mayor Weissman knows this, the name community was added to the schools because the concept was that our schools would be open to the community and that people would be invited onto our campuses. Over the last couple of years, it's now the whole mindset has shifted completely 180 degrees, where instead of being campuses to invite the community to step on and be a part of it, we're actually trying to close them down and prevent people from entering the campus. So this is a complete shift in terms of what our public schools have always been. So that's an important point that I want to mention, and it's unfortunate. We get a lot of comments in terms of what parents are looking for. They want safety, but they don't want what appears to be a prison. Teachers still want to be able to go out and plant a garden out in the field. Others want to be able to do outdoor experiences and not feel like they have to remain locked in their schools and to feel like it's a prison and to be afraid. A lot of people are expressing great fear at this point. Tremendous fear that I have never experienced before in conversations with parents. So with that, I do think it's important to clarify that the school district has been taking a number of measures in terms of school security over the past few years since Sandy Hook. Aventura Waterways is one of the more secure school sites that you'll find. Principal Bello has gone to great lengths to ensure that there's limited access points to that school, that people have identification. I used to be able, as a school board member, to be able to find a way to enter each and every school to see if I could get in, and also to be able to make shortcuts to get to my visits. But that's one school that I cannot penetrate, and I just want to recognize the principal for that. But please understand, the school district is not, as it was stated, not doing anything. A number of measures have been taken. I'll share a few of them with you. But again, a lot of that work began after Sandy Hook in 2013. What's been steps that have been implemented recently? Teachers have been directed to lock their classrooms during the school day. Entrance after class period begins will require a key or knock for entrance. Now, all secondary schools will implement mandatory school issue ID use. That's now taking place. All schools are being evaluated to reduce points of entry on campus, and protocols related to drills and school lockdowns are under review. Next, all available law enforcement and mental health resources are being redeployed to school sites. New and absolute directives related to school security personnel performance have been issued, requiring all school security personnel without exception to wear identifiable uniforms to increase visibility on campus. Finally, parent communication is being enhanced through the use of text messaging to provide information when a threat is received and notification once a threat has been cleared. And keep in mind that, as I close, that we have partnerships with a number of municipalities throughout Miami-Dade, because we recognize that with 370 campuses, and we're really a school system, not a school police, but with a school police force, there's only so much that we can do. So we're creating a number of partnerships with local municipalities, not to say that we don't want to accept responsibility for ensuring that there's security, but to say that we welcome partnerships, that we need partnerships, and that together we can actually ensure that our schools are safer. So, for example, there's 3 municipalities that are currently working with me in School Board District 3 that have a strong presence at the schools and that are helping. I know that the chief here knows Chief Moffitt from School Board and is willing to work with him directly. I had the conversation with the School Board Chief of Police. He's eager, and it's a jurisdiction issue. But as the Commissioner stated, we need to get this done immediately. And so please know that a lot has been done, but a lot more will be done. Specifically, 3 municipalities that are already working with us include the City of Miami Beach for all of Miami Beach public schools, the City of Sunny Isles Beach, and also we have Surfside and Bay Harbor Islands police that are working at that school, and they have a very strong presence. We're grateful for that. We acknowledge that we can't do this alone, but to all of you sitting here, this is taken very seriously. There has been aggressive action since Sandy Hook. There'll be more, but I would like the region director to speak more specifically about what Aventura Waterways receives in terms of security support.
1 second before that. The 3 cases that you cited are schools that are physically located within the municipality. That is not the case, and I really have to say that. That's not the case in this situation. And the City of Aventura pays $68 million to Dade County Public Schools in school taxes. So I think I would personally, number one, from what I've heard, is that we have to have a request, and I don't know, we need that request, and we need a time frame. So, today's Thursday. The request is our starting point, if I heard you correctly, Chief. The request gives us the ability to go ahead. So we need that, if it's the school board, and if not, we need to be told, and our communities need to be told that they're not going to make the request. So that would be the first thing, that they make the request. I would also additionally ask that with the new dollars, unfortunately, all the dollars to advance education this year are being earmarked by the state for school safety, that Aventura Waterways be put on the very top of the list. Those would be my 2 requests. And now, Ms. Allion, if you want to.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. As Dr. Karp noted, we also have our Commander of the North Region, Commander Montoya Jackson, is with us today. And though Aventura Waterways does not have an exclusive officer assigned to their school for the entire 8 hours, it's important to note that there is an officer assigned to Highland Oaks Middle School, which is just in the same vicinity, and that officer is very accessible to Aventura Waterways on an as-needed basis. And Mr. Bello has, noted that she has been very accessible to him. So again, it's not somebody who's exclusively there, but there is the effort there, and that to make sure that there is police presence provided on a regular basis to the school at this time.
If I may.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I appreciate what you've said, and I appreciate the protocols that you're putting in place at the schools. I don't think it answered what I was asking, though. I'm trying to be more specific, and I can appreciate that there's a resource officer at the Highland Lakes Middle School, but unfortunately, by the time the shooting takes place, it would be way too late, obviously. I mean, the whole purpose is to have somebody at that location that's there immediately, because it's not only for, look, you can't stop everything from happening, but the idea is if there's a police presence, it's a deterrent in itself. Not so much once it starts, but if we have to make a phone call, the principal has to make a phone call and say, would someone from down the street come over here, I can be there in a few minutes, it's not going to happen that quickly. We know in the real world. But more importantly, what I'm hearing is, other than these protocols of security within the school systems, within the buildings, what plans are there, if any, and are there funds you say you have your own police force, and I understand that. What steps are being done to place somebody or have a resource center at that particular location, if at all, and what funding is there, if anything, to do these things? Because I understand that you have 3 communities now that are helping, and they've taken on the responsibility because they're in their jurisdiction, as the mayor said. We're going to take on the responsibility because they're children, forgetting what jurisdiction they're in. But I still haven't heard that the school board is doing anything to specifically deal, and I'm not going to ask the principal because I'm not going to put him on the spot, but obviously the reason the parents have come to us is because they're not satisfied with anything going on there in terms of a presence. And that's what we're being asked to help today. So what I really would like to hear is in the midterm or long term, a plan to have a presence on that property? And what is that? I don't care about the locks and the doors and the access points, because we all do that in the schools, and we understand that's critical. And as Dr. Mark said, that's actually more important to me than the person standing outside. But is there going to be a person standing outside and not a mile away? And I'm not criticizing what you're doing by any means. What you do is wonderful. But I'm concerned these parents came to us because they're not getting a response from the school board. So we're trying to understand that specific answer.
Right. Well, I'm sorry if they don't feel they're getting a response, because if anybody addresses us, they get an immediate response.
You know what I mean. I don't mean a phone call response. I'm saying a reaction.
But in terms of a response, so my understanding is there would be a school resource officer at every school site, which would include Aventura Waterways. Based on the outcome from the legislative session, at least that's the plan that was presented to me, that each school site would have that. Now, there was additional conversations. The legislative session just wrapped up only a few days ago, and we're still looking at the numbers. But the amount of dollars that we've received for security has been quite small, again, for 370 campuses. Again, my understanding is that each school site would have its own dedicated school resource officer. My other understanding is, and this was in a conversation late yesterday in committee meetings, I just want to be cautious about this, but right now we have security monitors. Security monitors, as we understand, and we all know, and the parents here recognize, security monitors are tasked with different assignments. They are not necessarily individuals that are trained to be able to stop an active shooter. So the superintendent and others had a conversation that they're looking at a different system where instead of just relying on security monitors, you have a trained individual that passes certain fitness requirements, that has met specific training measurements and can actually protect students at the school. And so that was the first time I heard that yesterday afternoon late in the committee meeting from the superintendent. So if that is the case, then not only will you have a school resource officer, you'll have someone, not a security monitor, but someone who can actually be able to confront an active shooter and save lives. So that's I think, a very significant step. So it's the superintendent of schools that makes the recommendation. As a school board, I'm like you. I'm a policy person. I can advocate for the community. I can say that Aventura Waterways needs additional security. Ultimately, the superintendent and staff will then present his budget and his plans for us to approve, and then it'll benefit Aventura Waterways by having that presence.
So if I understand, then you're saying that Mr. Cavallo, as chairman, is going to make a recommendation from the funding coming from the state that every school will have a resource officer?
My understanding is that the superintendent, yes, Mr. Carvalho, would present something to the school board members saying this is what the budget is, these are the dollars we're allocated, and this is what each school will get. So when
would you know that? When will you know when the recommendations are going to be made? When is your budget year?
So we have budget hearings typically in the very early part of the summer. However, since this was mentioned yesterday and we have a school board meeting coming up this coming Wednesday, I would expect to hear more details very shortly, perhaps in time for the next school board meeting. Certainly what I'll do is, at the conclusion of this meeting, I'll reach out to the superintendent and I'll let him know exactly what took place. If there's a specific request, I'll be able to share that as well. And the final piece is I'll also reach out to County Commissioner Sally Hayman, because while Aventura Waterways is not in the City of Aventura's jurisdiction, and you do have a number of students that attend there, nevertheless, it's a county jurisdiction. There are opportunities there to get additional support, and so I'll be glad to follow up with that. But I'll get you a specific date when we'll have a clear picture of what that will mean for the Aventura Waterways campus.
And I appreciate that.
Dr.
Thank you very
Karp.
much.
I'm sorry. Dr. Karp, would you anticipate that by the opening of school next year, based on what you've heard, not holding your feet to the fire, that there would be a dedicated police officer in every one of our schools?
Based on what I've heard, that would be what yes, that's
what
my
I thought I
understanding.
heard.
There would be.
That is what I
that's
thought.
I don't know what the person will be called, if it's school resource officer, police officer, but yes,
Yeah.
the answer is yes, based on everything that I've been told. And now hearing what I heard yesterday in our committee meeting, there may actually be a change in terms of what our security monitors, what that looks like at each school campus. So you actually have people that have the ability and the training and the physical requirements and fitness to be able to confront any active shooter on campus.
I would also make one other really strong suggestion, and I think I'm right on this. Lots of times officers and resources get allocated based on incidents. All right? Parkland gave us a wake-up call. My guess is Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was not a school with a high, and our city manager came from that area, with a high level of incidents, if any. So I think maybe the formula needs to be, and I know you agree, the formula needs to be re-looked at. None of us know when a crazy, deranged person is going to do something, and it doesn't have anything to do with the zip code, and it doesn't have anything to do with where a school is located. It just has to do with deficits in our society today. So that would be a strong recommendation that we revise some of those protocols based on what's happened in the past 10 years. And I know you will remember, CROP was open for about 6 months when Columbine happened. I will let you know, as their principal, I did not sleep for months. And again, the incident seemed to drive the support. So again, in my request particularly, it's going to be that we look at other kinds of factors, because we don't know where the violence is going to come from anymore.
I want to thank you for that comment, Mayor Weissman. You are 100% on target, because what happens is when you look at some of these incidences, they've happened in zip codes that mirror Aventura. And unfortunately, the notion is that some of these incidences are happening in different communities. And the reality is, whether you look at Columbine or you look at Parkland, it's not by zip code. And your statement is right on target. I have to speak as strongly as I can, because this community deserves this support, and it has to get it.
So what we're hearing, what the parents then should walk away with today, is we're going to take care of the momentary issues, and come the fall, the school board will have somebody on the property. So for the parents sitting here, what they're hearing is, as of the next few days, they will be a full-time person on that campus, right through from today until whenever, based on what we're hearing. Is that correct?
I've got to say, we haven't
We haven't voted, but I'm just saying that's the
we
intention.
haven't made
Right.
that decision.
On my end, if I may,
That's what we're
Honorable
talking
Mayor,
about your end mostly.
on my end, yes, I will gladly come back to whether it's another meeting or however you would like to address that. I'd be happy to come back with the specifics. As soon as I have them, I'll reach out, and we'll come here and let you know the details as to what support Aventura Waterways K-8 will receive from the school system.
We would truly appreciate that, Commissioner Dr. Marks, and then Commissioner Weinberg.
Dr. Karp, thank you, and thank you for giving us the information that you've provided. I'm just going to ask that when you have your school board meeting, it doesn't matter where you live, children are children, and they all deserve protection. And we are living in a world that none of us can understand. So I'm going to ask, at least on behalf of myself, if not the whole commission, please take the message back for us that we do not care about the zip code, but we do care about our children, and we want them to have the same coverage that you would give a school anywhere, because active shooters don't necessarily pick zip codes. So please, if you could relay that message, we would appreciate it.
Commissioner Weinberg, then Commissioner Mizrahi.
Thanks. That's great information, and I feel better, and I think everyone does. And I appreciate you coming here, Dr. Karp, and giving us that statement that, based on your understanding, we will have someone on site at all times, and that's a really wonderful thing. I had a question, but you mentioned the police departments in 3 municipalities. You said Bay Harbor, Surfside, and what was the other one?
Right. So I had mentioned, and I was only saying that all I was trying to point out is that we're seeking partnerships. We recognize that we can't do everything alone, and that's on the academic piece too. We have compacts that look for cost-sharing measures and that support programming, after-school programs. So it's not just about the police. It's a school board statement and the school district statement under the leadership of the superintendent that we welcome community support in all different areas. So the areas that I mentioned were Miami Beach, and Surfside, it doesn't include, Bay Harbor K-8 is not in Surfside, but they're providing some support. I mentioned Sunny Isles Beach as well, and Bay Harbor Islands.
Okay, thanks. And that's what I wanted to make sure, because, and you just mentioned it, in the case of Ruth K. Broad,
yes,
Bay Harbor K through 8, it's not in Surfside, yet you mentioned that their police department is assisting. So my respectful recommendation would be for our chief to speak with Chief Dave Allen in Surfside just to see what it is that they're agreeing to do, or what kind of participation they have, because they are going into the next municipality. In our case, of course, it's unincorporated, but the idea is they're going to be assisting at a school that is not in their jurisdiction. So just for our own edification, it may be instructional to just hear what that's about.
And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. I want to thank the City of Aventura as a tremendous partner in many ways. A lot of people don't know the support that you've given in terms of Dr. Kropp Senior High School and other schools in the area, and just providing a forum for the Kropp student to come each and every month to be able to share news. Obviously, a number of you are connected to the public schools in different ways, and we welcome any opportunity. We're just looking for partnerships. It's just as simple as that, and we're grateful. Thank you.
Commissioner Mizrahi, wait, we've got a few more.
Dr. Karp, thank you so much for everything. I just have a quick request. Can you please expedite everything that needs to be done so there's an officer on Monday?
I'll do my best.
I don't think the parents will take out. We need to know that we have all the paperwork we need so we can move forward.
I understand. I'll do everything in my power.
Thank you so
like I said,
much.
at the conclusion of this meeting, I will call the superintendent's office.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to now open the comments to our public. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission? And the school board member is here. I think many of you were here before, so I'm going to ask that you come up, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good morning. My name is Fabiana Izquierdo. I live in Aventura. And
We need your address for the record, sorry.
21205 Northeast 37th Avenue, including the apartment.
No.
Aventura, Florida. Aventura, Florida 33180.
Thank you so much.
And in this meeting, as well as in other meetings that have been before, a couple of commissioners have talked about Aventura Waterways Gate Center as a second-rated school. 3 years ago, my daughter was accepted at ACES, and we decided as a family that we wanted her to go to Aventura Waterways Gate Center because of many reasons. Aventura Waterways Gate Center is a great school, and we are happy to be there. Please start considering our school. Please start considering our school as good, and maybe even better as ACE, because this is the way we feel. Just because we're not physically in Aventura, that does not mean that our children or us are not part of our city. Our children deserve to be protected as any other Aventura child, because we are part of our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Diane Gleit. I live at 3148 Northeast 212th Street, Aventura 33180. About 4 years ago, there was an incident at Aventura Waterways where there was an armed, if I'm correct, an armed assailant running through the neighborhood where we were on lockdown. My children were in first and second grade. They were in a bathroom in the classroom with their teacher and their 22 other students. I feel very blessed that Mr. Bello is the principal. I pray that he doesn't leave, at least until my children are out of that school. And I cannot tell you that afternoon, the fear I saw on the assistant principal, who's amazing, Dr. Lane, on her face when she told me all she worried about were those kids. I know that they do their best job that they can protecting the school. I do feel that Miami-Dade County Public Schools doesn't really pay attention to Aventura Waterways because they're an A school, the kids do fine, everything's great. They're not in the boundaries, so to speak. I feel like we're kind of the Cinderella stepchild, whatever. So I am grateful that you're willing to step up and help us get what we need from the county. Because my good friend, Max Schachter, lost his son in Parkland a month ago. My daughter was supposed to sleep at their house that Saturday night. And it pains me to think that that could have been our school with 2,200 kids. And I think it's amazing that Highland Oaks has a resource officer, but we have more kids in our school. And our school is open. You know, it is open to West Dixie Highway with just an open chain fence all around. So I am grateful that we have Mr. Bello, Dr. Lane, and the other assistant principals protecting our kids, because that's the only reason why I can sleep at night and not stand out there and myself and watch, which I've done on occasion. But I really feel like this is something that's very important. We as parents are going to the school board meeting next week. We have been handing out flyers, we have been posting on Facebook, and we will be there fighting for our kids to have some protection in that school. So we're here today to, thank you for what you're doing for us, but I want you to know that we're not stopping here. We're also going to the school board meeting next week. Thank you.
I will tell you now, I will accompany you to the school board meeting. Any other parent? It's Senator Silver.
Takes me a little longer now to get up there. Ron Silver, 2031 Northeast 209th Street. I just want to address you. I was going to be here on another item, which was item 3, but I know you've tabled that, so I won't talk about that. But let me tell you, I'm still, even though I'm not in the Senate, I had the privilege of representing this area for 24 years in the Florida legislature. I still am concerned about policy. And first of all, this issue is very important to me from standpoint of just an individual. I have a daughter that's a teacher in Broward County. My wife, as the mayor knows, taught for 35 years, I think. She keeps reminding me, and how she supported me during my legislative days up in Tallahassee. So I know that for a fact. I have 2 grandchildren in the Broward County school system. First, and why I wanted to talk right now was because while Dr. Carper's here, I just want you to know that you have a superintendent of schools, okay, Mr. Carvalho, who, I'll tell you, lives and dies with this issue every single day. I, unfortunately, have been in the presence of Dr. Carvalho, our Superintendent Carvalho, I'll get my doctors mixed up, Superintendent Carvalho, when he's received calls that one of his students has been killed on the street, okay? And he gets that call very frequently. And you do not know the emotional impact that has on him. And I mention that because I want you to know you have a caring superintendent that's going to do everything in his power to be able to go forward and help the situation. And with the school board supporting him, and we're so fortunate that he was able to stay here because he cares. He has an emotional impact every time he loses a student. And I think Mayor Weissman knows that for a fact. And I just want to tell you one thing that I think is not being discussed now, but should be discussed, and that's the facility itself, okay? Like Dr. Karp mentioned, that, okay, the teachers are requested to lock the doors. Okay, well, in Parkland, they locked the doors. Unfortunately, the bullets went right through the doors, okay, and killed the students, okay? That they were behind the doors. So that has to be considered. The bulletproof windows. I'm working on a project now which will combine all this together, and I'm in the process of finalizing some things right now, but that has to be considered. Now, that's a little bit more long-term. I think the resource officer is critical at this particular point, but I think that has to be considered in all your planning. The facility itself, does the bullet go through the concrete? What about the windows? What about the doors? You can't have a locked door and then let the bullets go right through the door and kill students. So I just want, when you're doing your consideration of all these things, I would hope that you would address that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Senator Silver was still in Tallahassee, we would not be talking about the limited funding that we are now getting out of that Austin body, which I do want to say this, and I'll just speak for myself. I'm ashamed that it took what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to get the kind of reaction. Our children have been our teachers. Our children have taken the lead. They're supposed to be children. And I think innocence has been lost. I don't think they'll ever be the same again or feel the same way. Schools and churches are really two holy places. They should be the safest places in our communities. I don't know what's happened. We're the only civilized country in the world where schools deliberately, synagogues, churches are targeted with assault weapons. I know of nowhere else. I'm ashamed, and I'm ashamed that the students have had to be the lead on this, that we as adults didn't take this up almost 20 years ago, and it has not stopped. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to address it? Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi. Star Stein, 3370 Northeast 190th Street. I know we're talking about getting the security guard or the police officer. My daughter is supposed to go to the annex next year. I don't know exactly what kind of protection is there, but we might have to budget for two. So please keep that in mind, that there needs to be one at both the annex and the K-8.
Ms. Stein, thank you so much, and I think Dr. Karp will remember when the annex was built, because it was built in a retail center for that community. The school system made certain commitments about security, and I think what Ms. Stein is asking is that you follow up on that and see, and make sure. Commissioner Mizrahi.
I just have one clarification for the parent that addressed us regarding downgrade of waterways. I'm a new commissioner and I have never heard that. On the contrary, the kids that have not gone into ACES are very happy going into waterways, and it has never been mentioned that it has been a second grade downgraded school.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to talk?
My name is Sabina Potak. I live at 3332 Northeast 190th Street in Aventura. I moved here 2.5 years ago with my two girls. One is in 4th grade and one is in 6th grade now in the annex. Just this past summer, my girls got into ACES and we chose to stay at the Waterways. We've been very happy with the principal, with our teachers. In the end, it was a no-brainer. And I moved from a wonderful school district, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, called Montclair, New Jersey, in Montclair, New Jersey. And we've been thrilled. I didn't realize until just the last few weeks that the Waterways was considered the forgotten child, I guess, by some. I guess it's because of the jurisdiction, maybe, in terms of, where the school is located, Miami-Dade versus Aventura. And, I don't think that it matters. I don't think the liability matters. I don't think the, red tape should come into play. I'm so happy, to hear that everybody wants to make a change. I loved what Commissioner Weinberg had to say, and, the sense of urgency from Commissioner Nawrocki, and, your proactiveness coming to the school and working with the Chief of Police, and, everything the Chief of Police has been doing and trying to be doing. And I'm happy to hear that the mayor and the vice mayor, everyone here wants to make a change. And I'm looking around and I'm learning all of your names, and I think everyone out here is sitting here, and making mental notes of who represents our city, and also the representation of the school board and what they plan to do. So as Commissioner Nawrocki said, we look forward to Monday and seeing a presence at the school on Monday, and every day after that, at the Waterways, at the Annex, and, frankly, every school should have it, and that's just the start. And hopefully we'll see changes coming down from the state in terms of gun laws and mental health. Every school should have mental health education. New York, it's mandated now. The rules have changed. We should have that in Florida. There should be in every school mental health education, mental health support. So to me, this is a beginning, and it's a great beginning. And if Monday the change isn't made and we don't see that presence, well, we're going to be coming here. We're going to be calling you. We're going to be calling the school board, and it doesn't matter. We don't care who gets the job done. We just want it done, because our children, they're everything to us, and they should be everything to you.
And I don't think you heard anything different from every person up here.
I agree.
Okay,
And I am so pleased, and I know everyone sitting out here feels the same way. I really appreciate it, and I'm proud to be living in Aventura now. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Is there anyone else? Come on.
Good morning. My name is Lisbeth Arellano, 2775 Northeast 187th Street, Aventura, Florida. I just want to say thank you, because I see the interest that you guys have in advancing on this initiative, on this first step. I want to thank every one of you, Mr. Bello and the representative of the school board. I want to emphasize that we need action. We need it fast. Fast. Like, I don't care if my daughter, which is in kinder, she doesn't build a spaceship in the school. I care that she comes back alive, uninjured, today, tomorrow, next day, and all the next days. So I appreciate, and I want you, every one of you, and I personally, I will hold you accountable. You said this, what's happening? What is interfering between what you want, what we want, and we need to do? So, I hear that all the actions, all the legalities, all the jurisdiction, beautiful. I want to, like the parents that was just here, I want to see on Monday a police officer there. He may not be the person that absolutely deter a crazy guy with a gun, but definitely it's going to be a deterrent if someone sees that in a school. The available police officer that is in the other school, that if something happened, we can call in and come back, like the vice mayor said, if something happened, it's going to take time, the traffic, I call you and then you call the other one and the other one call the other one because of whatever jurisdictions, it's going to take time. We need someone there, and of course in every single school. But like I say, I don't care whatever we need to do. We're going to be pushing the parents. We're organizing ourselves here. We're going to go to the meeting of the school board, and we want to see results fast, action fast. And I appreciate that you guys are trying to, what would be the word? You're trying to expedite the channels and, the procedures that it needs to be followed. But yes, our kids are going to be the next leaders tomorrow and the next year and, and years to come. We need to protect them now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to say I think every single person on this commission, and that's why we called this meeting, children are our most precious resources, and it's just unconscionable. It's unconscionable. Commissioner Landman.
I just want to thank all of the parents who stood up and spoke this morning. We want to hear from you. And I also want to see what can we do to move forward. I think if no one else in the public needs to speak, if we need to pass a resolution, if we need to take a roll call, whatever needs to be done so that, we can move this process forward.
Commissioner Weinberg.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, because one of the parents just thanked us, but I would like to thank the parents, and I usually say the moms, even though dads are involved. At the end of the day, we all know, as a father, I know it's the moms. And so I would like to please encourage you to continue your advocacy. Please show up everywhere and be a real pain in the ass to everyone. It's greatly appreciated. As Dr. Karp knows, I like to say, I have 3 children in 3 different Dade County public schools. So I am you, and I thank you for your advocacy. My daughter will be going to the march in Washington, D.C. She lost her friend Alyssa in Parkland. They were going to be in the same cabin again at summer camp. So I am you, and I appreciate what you are doing. And please get all of your friends and bring them everywhere and make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, I'm officially going to close this item to public comment. I think that we've certainly made all of our voices heard. There's great unanimity in the words that we've spoken. I think Commissioner Nawrocki would like to say something.
Just very quickly, specifically with regard to the long-term solution, we're all on the same page with the short-term solution, and I appreciate Dr. Karp's comments, but one point that the mayor mentioned earlier, which I want to echo, for the parents, for your advocacy as taxpayers of Aventura and of Miami-Dade County, it's important that you show a presence, and if you're going to advocate towards the school board, make sure that they are aware for the long term they have to budget for us, not that they just can pawn it off on us and say, okay, you're providing the service, which we of course are doing, but it's important that in the long term that they take the lead, and it seems like we're going in that direction, but please, I would encourage everybody to keep that pressure up so that the commitment is made for the long term, so that they don't look at Aventura and say, this is a certain type of donor community, they've already put the resources in, they can afford to do it long term. It's important that we keep them to their commitment, that they provide those resources, and that full-time exclusive officer provided for by the county, provided by their police force, with the budgeting for the long term, and that it's not just pawned back on the city of Aventura to do that in the long term. So I would encourage everybody to keep up that long-term pressure, and again, thank you for all your comments.
So, with that said, before I ask for a motion, and I'm only going to address the short-term solutions, would you please review the short-term solutions, and then I'm going to ask for a motion for approval.
Yes, Mayor. What staff would ask is that we would have a motion from the commission that would authorize me with the chief of police to execute any documents necessary in order to get a security detail at Waterways K through 8, starting on Monday through the end of the school year.
Can I have a motion? Commissioner Dr. Linda Marks, seconded by Commissioner Mizrahi. Can I please have a roll call
Mayor,
vote?
Mayor,
Yes.
before you,
Sorry.
may I just add a few words to what you're saying, and that is with all deliberate speed on all matters pertaining to this? Okay, because, I guess the initial thing has to come from, the request has to come from.
We've already sent the language to
Great.
the police
Thank you
chief
so
that he's
much.
going to send to the school board.
Thank you so much.
And what we're passing is our resolution, giving her the authority to move forward on the short-term recommendations. I think there'll be time later for the intermediate and the long-term solutions, but we need to make sure that we've done everything we can do to make these kids safe and have their parents feel that they're safe. So with that said, Clerk, can we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Landman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Marks,
Yes.
Commissioner Mizrahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Weinberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shelley,
Yes?
and Mayor Weissman.
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. With that said, I'm going to ask for a motion for adjournment. Motion made by Vice Mayor Shelley, seconded by Commissioner Narodsky. This meeting is officially adjourned.